Hello, and welcome to Marriage and Money, a conversational podcast about personal financial topics aimed at taking the money stress out of a marriage and turning the focus to enjoying life together. This is a weekly discussion brought to you by a seemingly financially incompatible couple bonded by the legal contract of marriage. My name's David, your favorite saver, and I'm joined today by the spender in my life, Heather. Heather, how can people contact us and get their questions or their topic suggestions highlighted on the show?
Great question. People should find us and can reach us on Instagram at marriage.and.money, or they can email us at marriageandmoneypodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you all how your conversations are going, what topics you'd like us to cover, anything you want to know.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I may have to send an email to that as well just to get my conversation starters in.
But it's
I
probably
can't.
a good place for you to start.
Well, yeah, it doesn't seem to be working elsewhere, so maybe if I try there, I'll get a little more traction. Well, we have a great show for you today. Today we're going to be talking about saving. But first, I want to check in with you, Heather. What's been happening? What are you working on these
Sure.
days?
So today happens to be the best day of the month. I know.
Is it Christmas?
No, of
Oh, the
the
month,
month.
not the year. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Come on, we're
Uh,
not that crazy
well, it is
yet.
the weekend.
Um, so today is the day that I got the bank statement and I balanced the checkbook. I know. I'm a total nerd, and I'm pretty sure I'm the only person on the planet that still does this, but it is so gratifying. I'm a total nerd. And I know that I could do it any day of the week. I could go onto my bank account and do it, but I just wait till I get that statement, check everything, balance it out.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good feeling.
So I'm all about let's make sure the bank statements let's make sure we know how much money is in our account. I think that's a good thing. And this is something I never did when I was single, or I did for a little while I was single, but then
Heart be still.
eventually I did it. But then I kind of realized, wait a second, the bank's
You're
never
just
wrong.
loaded. You're like, I'm loaded. I don't need to worry. I don't need to count my monies. I'm loaded. Got it.
uh,
No, I'm not so anal. If I'm off by $1 or less, I just plug it. I don't go back and chase it down. And but that rarely
I,
happens.
I
Let's just
will
be
admit
honest. It rarely happens.
I will admit that now it makes a lot more sense to do it now that we're operating more on a cash basis, whereas before in my single days, I used credit cards all the time, and so I got that bill once a month, and I would just pay that bill. But now that we are operating purely on debit cards, we need to take a much closer look at what are the charges and where do we actually stand today. So I'll give you a little bit of slack on this one.
And I will say, like, I have progressed and advanced over the years. I am not analog anymore. This is a digital process for
I'm proud
me.
of
It's
that.
online. Like, I don't even print stuff out. I do kind of miss printing it out and checking things, but I've gone digital. It's good for the environment. So I feel like I've made progress.
Yeah,
Do you
you've automated a little bit more. You're not quite as manual as
do
you
you
once
think
were.
they teach this anymore? Do you think like our nieces and nephews have any idea how to do something like
Ah,
this?
that's a good question.
I don't
That's a really
know.
good question. I don't
Anyway.
know. I feel like, well, so first of all, checks are antiquated, but people still have checking accounts to pay things with rather than savings accounts. I don't know. I don't know.
I'd love to. Well, this would be a great topic to hear from the audience. If you still balance your checkbook or not,
Right,
shoot us an email.
right. Especially those that are under, I don't know, under 30. Do you balance your checkbook ever? Did you learn to do this in school? All right. Well, as I mentioned earlier, today's topic is around saving this week. And I, as as I've mentioned multiple times, I am a saver. So Heather said that most of her topics are her favorite topics, and this one is my favorite topic. I'm a saver. We're talking about saving. I love it.
I figured you'd be pretty excited about the topic today. I'm kind of wondering who picked it out. It's pretty clear who had the influence on this one. I must have been kind of wore out that night we decided. did the old paper rock scissors.
Well,
But so I'm assuming that our next episode will feature
maybe
spending.
we could do an
So
episode on spending.
yeah, I think that has to
What
be
does
next.
responsible spending look like?
I'll
But
try to stay awake during this episode.
I was wondering if maybe this would be a good opportunity because we haven't talked much about why I'm a saver. If we got into a little bit of that, if you don't mind me spending some time talking about that. So,
Please.
um, I am a say. Let me take you back a ways.
Oh boy.
So let me take you back to the
Hopefully you got your cup of
1980s.
coffee, everybody, to
So,
sit.
one of my first memories about money, probably my first, maybe my first, one of them, is me really wanting the Fisher Price Alpha Probe. This was a spaceship that one of my friends, my best friend, back when I was like 5 years old, had, and it lit up. It had noises. It made sounds. It was so cool. It had a little guy and a shuttle in there, and I wanted it so badly. And then for my birthday, my grandma sent me some money. I don't remember how much it was. $5 or $10 for my birthday, and I went to the store and I wanted to buy that space shuttle, and then my mom told me, "No, you can't buy the space shuttle. It costs more than that." And I don't remember how much it cost, but it was like, oh, I was so heartbroken. And she said, you're going to have to save up your money from your birthday and Christmas and whatever, and then you can get it. And so then I got dead set on I wanted to save up my money. And I saved up my money. I started saving.
Yay, so there's really a spender at the heart of the story.
Well, not really, because once I finally I had this money. I started accumulating this money then for my birthdays and Christmases. Well, then I liked having options. So I've mentioned in previous episodes, like to me, money is about options. It opens doors and it gives me the flexibility. And that's what I was realizing is, oh, now I could buy that spaceship, or I could buy a few packs of that silly putty, or I could buy whatever it is, right? Whatever that fun toy is I wanted, and I had a hard time committing to that one tool. So
So, or the option is to not spend anything. Like that's usually what your option I feel like is you choose.
yeah, that's an option too, but the point is that I'm not eliminating options, and so I think I have a hard time maybe narrowing options, and maybe that's part of it. Um, I, I also don't like feeling like I need to go without, right? So I like feeling like I'm choosing to go without rather than being told I have to go without. Like it's my choice now. And so I'm a little more empowered that way. And then I also think I want my future self to thank me, right? I think about future David, and I want future David to say, "Hey, good job, past David, for saving up." And then of course I'm security and risk. I'm security. I value security, and I'm risk averse, as you know. So anyway, a little bit of background. That's high level why I'm a saver. But um, yeah. So when what do you recommend when we're saving? Um, you need to start somewhere. And my advice to people is if they haven't started saving, they should set up with an emergency fund.
Yeah. So I think the first step is you do need a little money in the bank in case of an emergency while you're getting out of debt. So if you're in debt and you're trying to pay down debt, you do need to have a little money stashed aside. This is the break glass here, in emergencies. There will be surprise expenses while you're getting out of debt. That's the one thing that's guaranteed in life, right? So we would recommend somewhere between $1,500 to $2,000 that you can just get to reasonably quick. I know that may sound like a lot of money to people, so we don't want it to be so overwhelming that
And
you
it is a lot
can't
of money.
save it quickly. But realistically, like it's a lot of emergencies or happen to be, around $1,000 or something. So that's where we what we recommend to start with.
Yes, and so I just think about things like most times we take the car in, it's maybe not $1,000 every time, but it can be pretty close. And then I also think back to a time when we were renting out our house at one point, and we were away on vacation. Everything was going great. We were having a grand time, and then we got a call from the property management company saying, "Oh, your air conditioning unit, your central air just died, and you need to buy a new AC. It's the summer, and your tenants need air conditioning, and we need to put it in tomorrow." And it's like, oh, crap, we have the expense of the vacation. We weren't planning on this AC unit, which they were saying was going to be about $3,500, and just like out of the blue. And thankfully, we had that money, like you said, set aside.
And we kind of still do this today. So today in our account, our bank account, we do have a small savings account that we just keep a couple $1,000s in that we can transfer immediately. So if something happens and it needs to be happened today, we can transfer that money into our checking. Boom, we can cover real same day emergencies today. Um, so make sure that that money is accessible. Probably not a good idea to have the spender carry it around in their wallet. Probably not the best place, but it does need to be accessible.
Yeah, that's good advice. And but $1,500 is a lot of money, Heather. So
It is.
let's say
There's a lot
you're
of things I could buy with
but
$1,500,
but
but that's
but
not what we're here
most
to talk about.
most people are scraping by. Most people are paycheck to paycheck or even running negative. So what would your advice be to those people?
Sure. I mean, it is a lot of money, and I know you're very busy, but I mean, one way that you could do to get it is to get a part-time job. It doesn't need to be forever, but if you really do need to get up some cash quickly, there are, you could get a part-time job just to try to get a little bit of money set up to help you for these emergencies.
Exactly. Yeah, this is also something that's good. Look at your expenses. See what you can carve out. Get rid of eating out and whatnot.
So once you've are out of debt, so this was when you're in debt, but once you're out of debt, now you got to beef it up. This is like getting serious. This is the legitimate emergency fund that you have. Because again, there will always be emergencies in life, whether you're in debt or you're not in debt or you're tired or whatever, stuff is going to happen. So once you're out of debt, we recommend that you put 3 to 6 months of your expenses, so you're spending, into an emergency fund savings account.
And we've been closer on the 6 month side than the 3 month, but we've
Oh,
kind of varied.
shocking.
And
Mr.
that's kind of
Security.
been my influence, I'll admit. But yeah, the overall objective of this phase is really just to reduce overall risk. So now, when you're out of debt, you want to build up that fund. So in the event that you were to lose your job or suffer a medical tragedy or family emergency, then you can do that. This isn't for vacations. This isn't to be used on a new car when your old one you feel like is just too unreliable. This is really true emergencies.
So I just feel like this really helps you be prepared so that emergencies don't ruin you. You don't want to take a step backwards into your bad habits when you get that call like we did on, hey, the air conditioner's out, or oh, the car needs 4 new tires. Like you don't want to have to go back into, oh, I got to take out debt to do this. You want to be prepared. Plus, I find that since we've been prepared, I honestly don't remember as many emergencies. It's probably because they don't exist. It's just they're just not as stressful. It's not that things don't come up, but we're prepared. We've got the money. We just take care of it, and like there's not the stress and the arguments and how are we going to handle it? It's just
It smooths it out. Yeah. And then like you said, this can be stored in a savings account. You're not making any interest on it. It's just sitting there ready to go. And I must admit, this is the thing that probably bothers me the most, and the hardest part of it is having 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting there without interest. It's the right thing to do. It's just it hurts me a little bit on the inside to know that I have that money sitting there not doing anything.
I know, but think of the security it brings you. It's like that little security blanket
You-
for you.
You're 100% right.
Now, I will say, speaking to the spenders out there, you've probably, if you haven't already tuned out, let me just confess, this is not fun, okay? This is not fun to put money aside for emergencies. I get it. But trust me, it is so much less fun to not be prepared and get stressed out. So here's my advice to all you spenders out there. Just get it done. Just get it done quickly, put it aside, move forward so that you can focus on what you're going to buy next.
It's all about on what you're going to buy. Oh my, yeah, very predictable there. And then so now you have your larger 3 to 6 months
So
emergency
we're done,
fund put
right? We
together?
don't have anything else we have to save for. We're good. We are
Yeah,
good.
no, no.
Discussion over. It's
The
gonna be a
whole
short
point
episode.
of getting that in place is so that now we can think about the future. The emergency fund is very much about the day-to-day stuff that comes up you're not expecting. Now, what about retirement? What about college? What about needing to buy a house? There's these big goals, right?
Oh, you're bringing up the G word to me again. You know how my heart loves those goals.
Exactly,
Got to
exactly.
get on page with
Goals.
you on that. No, you're right. You're right. We're adults here. We have to be responsible. There is more savings. I'm sorry, spenders, hang in there with us. So yeah, we recommend for retirement. Obviously, hopefully, you want to retire and you don't want to work your whole life. Hopefully, you can do that.
Or
So
even if you do want to work your whole life, give yourself the option to not.
Good point. Good point. So we recommend start with 15% of your income and put that aside, earmark it, put it in funds for retirement. If you've got company, ways to do that, max out if your employer matches, make sure you take advantage of that. So set that aside and work towards that goal.
And then college wise, if you have kids, start saving for your kids as early as possible. Don't do this at the expense of your own retirement. This should be in addition to anything that you're doing for your kid for your own retirement. Your kids have more time to save for their future than you have to save for yours. So in this is one of the few times you should probably put yourself first before your kids. But when Heather and I were looking at having kids, we were planning to also just do like a big lump sum up front. We were looking at compounding interest and saying, well, if we just put a big lump sum down right away, set that aside, then we could probably do that once, set it and forget it kind of thing. The Mr. Popeil of college retirement plans. So that's another option too. Um, and then we mentioned houses.
Now we're talking. It's
I know
about time to buy something. Here we go.
physical assets. Heather loves buying stuff. So what? How do you buy stuff, Heather?
So this is an area of expertise for myself. Thank you very much for asking my professional opinion, especially house shopping. It is super fun. So if anybody wants some help, let me know. But no, seriously, when you go to buy a house, start with at least get a 20% down payment. That's a lot of money, I know, but try. That needs to be the minimum of what you go to when you're purchasing a house. I will tell you a funny story when David and I bought our first house together. So he owned a house when we got married. So it was the day before we were going to close on the house, and we went to the bank. We had all the money in the account, the 20% down payment. We went to the bank to get the cashier's check, and they wouldn't give it to us. And we were like, what? But it was such a large amount. They didn't have anyone at that branch with the authority to cut us a cashier's check for that amount. It was crazy. I couldn't believe it. I was super stressed. We had to go the next day of, totally not something we wanted to do, to get the check, and it was an incredible feeling to have a check, to see a check that size. Um, uh, I don't think I slept that night. I was super stressed. How did you like seeing a check that size that
It's
you're about to
exciting
turn over?
to see a check and be like, yeah, this is mine. We've worked hard for it. We've sacrificed to make this happen. But then there was also a little piece of me inside that was like, oh, and now we're putting this as just the down payment of a whole big loan that we're going into. So it was kind of mixed. It was a little bit mixed there. But yeah, no, it's certainly exciting to see the progress that we've made as we've been working at abolishing debt in our lives. Um,
I mean, another option is you can pay cash for a house, which
yes.
seems crazy, I'm sure people, but it'd be incredible. But
Yeah,
yeah,
so renting is a total option here, right? So if you want to pay cash for a house, and this is probably what I would recommend personally. If I were to go back and do things over again, I went to bought a house right out of college. I should have rented. I should have saved my money. There are a lot of expenses that I never anticipated that come with home ownership. And I would have saved so much more money. And I ended up selling that house at a loss. And so, like overall, I would have been way better renting than buying. But yeah, I was young. I didn't know any better. And so then the final piece again. Now houses are in your wheelhouse, Heather, but also purchases. So let's say now you've got your emergency fund. You're saving for retirement. You've bought your house, and now you want to spend some money for fun.
Oh, really?
Could you help me understand how can I responsibly spend some money for fun or save to spend some
I'm
money for fun?
not sure we have enough time in this episode. I'll try to be brief. So the biggest problem here is limiting the list. Maybe you should keep two. This is what
Oh.
I do: keep two lists. One for you with everything on it that you want to buy, and then you have a shared list
Wait,
with your.
you have two lists?
You don't listen to this, and then a second list that you share with your saver spouse, where you spoon out the items to your saver spouse so that they don't have a heart attack.
Like, I seriously didn't know this list existed. I knew that there was a list that was spooned out to me. I didn't know there were two lists. This is
I'll never
uh,
tell. But the most important thing is you talk about it as a couple about what your purchase plans are, get on the same page, communicate. You have to be aligned on this.
so the big one that comes to mind for me that we did was a car. So one of our last, well, I guess our last car that we purchased. Your car was getting old, the one you normally drive, Heather, and we knew in about 3 years' time, we were looking out way in advance. We said, okay, this car, in about 3 years, we want to retire this car, and so we went so far as to say, what are the cars, the brand new cars on the market today that we might want to buy when they're 3 years old? And so we went and we looked at a bunch of cars, we looked at options, made a list, tracked values, and over time, I mean, we kind of went overboard on this, but I thought that was a good way to start getting our heads in the right mindset and to start understanding how much are we going to have to spend for this car.
Well, I know. It was like I knew we were only this was my one shot. We weren't going to buy another car for 8 to 10 years. So it was like this is a lot of pressure. I have to make sure I make the right decision. This is a big decision. So yeah, we made a lot of spent a lot of
We had a
time planning on
spreadsheet
that.
going on, tracking values and cars and model. It was a bit excessive, but it was the way we did it. We're a bit weird like that. And then we saved up for a deck. We updated our deck, and then next up, it looks like you have an interest in buying a boat. Is that right?
You mean boats plural, right? There was an S on the end of that.
Maybe is that plural? Is
At
that
least
from that second list
yeah,
that I
at
haven't
least
seen
that's
yet?
what he knows about now.
Oh gosh. Okay.
I
Well,
will say, on the little things, sometimes it's okay to ask for forgiveness and not ask for permission. But on
I would
but
disagree with that very strongly.
on the big ticket items, you definitely should get on the same page.
What's a little item?
Yeah, that's the detail. Devil's in the details there.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk offline about that one. All right.
All right. So I hope you enjoyed this discussion on savings. Submitters, hopefully you made it through to get to the end of this. So now we want you to continue the conversation at home with your spouse. So you've heard from us a little bit about what our savings plan is, and now it's time for you two to talk about yours. So what is your savings plan today? Do you have an emergency fund? Where are your retirement savings at? Are you saving for kids' college? What big purchases are coming up? So put together a savings plan as a couple, lay out all of these different areas of what you're working on. So, David, you
Heather.
shared a lot about who you are as a saver. So here's your opportunity to speak to the spenders out there. Why in the world should they get on board with this?
Isn't it obvious? Haven't hasn't the case made itself? No, I understand there might be a little bit of sales needed on this for people that maybe are more inclined to see something and want it, or to have a hard time waiting. Um, I think ultimately spenders need to see what's in it for them. So why do I need to save? What's in it for me if I save? Because if I spend, there's something in it for me right away, right now. And I would say, what are those things you want? Do you want a nicer car? Do you want a nicer home? Do you want to have more freedom in retirement to spend more or spend on whatever you want? Do you want nicer vacations? Like, all of these things require savings and putting together a clear savings plan. And this reminds me a lot of, you probably heard in college, high school, you probably learned of the Stanford marshmallow experiment. Are you familiar with that at all, Heather?
Negative.
So so like
Apparently, I didn't go to as
in
fancy
the
of grad school as
1970s,
you.
like in the early 19, you didn't go to Stanford? In the early 1970s, there were some Stanford psychology students, and they did a study where they put a marshmallow in front of kids, little kids, and they told these little kids, now here's a marshmallow. I'm going to leave the room. I'll be back in a little while, but if you can wait till I get back, I'm going to give you two marshmallows rather than just one. And they went away and came back. Some of the kids ate the marshmallows, some of the kids waited and got a second marshmallow. And what they found in follow up studies was that the kids that waited and that had that perseverance and that saving, I would argue it's very similar to a saver mentality. Those are the kids that ended up with higher SAT scores and had generally better life outcomes. And not to say that it's scientifically proven that saving is the better route than spending, but
Don't worry, spenders. I'll try to find a fancy Harvard study on how spenders are better next time.
but I think the point is that there's value in delayed gratification, and ultimately that's what saving is it's delayed gratification, and I think doing that in an intentional way I think can be beneficial. Uh, so I think in specifically in our relationship, Heather, I think this worked in that in our case, I agreed to increasing our vacation and eating out budgets to a certain level once our savings goals were achieved. And like once we paid off certain debts, it was like, okay, now let's up the budget on these things that you value more highly than I do, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what I was gonna say. I hear what you're saying. To the spenders out there, just trust me. This will help stop the fights. If you can get on the same page with savings, then you can have the fun spending. So just get on the same page, reduce the risk. It's gonna set you up in life. You really can't do one without the other. You can't really spend without savings. Well, at least and be happily married, from what I've seen. So agreed. This is definitely something that will help your marriage if you can get on the same page and get on this savings train.
And one of the things before we wrap up, I'd just like to comment on. I think one of the common questions that savers also mention, and I know you've asked me before, Heather, is how much is enough or too much to save, right? I think enough people overspend that I'm hesitant to tell someone they shouldn't save more. Most people kind of err on the side of spending than they err on the side of savings. So I would say if you're going to err a little bit more on the savings side. And then, but ultimately, the question is, are you on track for your retirement and other goals? If you are, then you're probably saving enough. Still, there's no harm in saving a little bit more, as you can't always count on your current income being there forever, right? So, anyway, just some food for thought there from your friendly neighborhood saver. Well,
Thank you for being our expert saver on this conversation today. We were lucky to have you here.
thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Oh, well, that about wraps up our conversation for today. We'd love to hear from you on how your conversations around money in your marriage have gone, or to take your questions or topics for a future episode. So, once again, you can email us at marriageandmoneypodcast@gmail.com or message us on Instagram at marriage.and.money. And thanks so much for joining us this week. And remember that whether you are a spender or a saver, your best financial life lies somewhere in the middle.